Examiner says majority see FBI as Biden's personal Gestapo after Trump raid. This is the Examiner. This is not some, and this is crazy. It's a Rasmussen survey. 53% of likely voters agree there's a group of politicized thugs, the top of the FBI, that are using the FBI as Joe Biden's personal Gestapo. This is civil war.
I saw them as Gestapo when they raided Veritas.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like, that's insane.
This is the breakdown. This is the culture war reaching the highest levels of government that I was told would never happen. So when you hear, like I mentioned, when you hear that the FBI told Trump's people to secure these documents with a padlock, and they do, and then a few months later come in and smash the padlock, it makes no sense. Unless you point out, unless the reality is it was a different group of FBI agents who did it. Mm-hmm. And I had someone reach out to me claiming to be a retired agent who said, you're exactly right. There is leadership at the top, but different, managers or supervisors in different field offices.
In different interests.
I'm sure.
Right?
Exactly. Are going to be doing things against each other's interests.
Yeah, I think, I was actually looking into this because, a lot of people started talking about defunding the FBI. And I was actually thinking about what could a president do with just an executive order, right?
Abolish it.
They could do a lot. The FBI doesn't have like an explicit much in the way of explicit delegated authority from Congress. It actually is delegated to the Attorney General, who then has like the right to appoint officials. But the FBI is sort of like implicitly, it's not actually like mandated by Congress in the same way that other law enforcement agencies are. And so theoretically, like a president and an Attorney General could essentially just make it an executive order that's like, the FBI only does the things that is very specifically mandated to do by Congress, like track serial killers, and everything else we're just going to
Is that mandated by Congress?
There's like certain specific statutes that mandate things that the FBI should handle, but they're like narrow.
But does Congress prescribe through statutory law the maintenance of the FBI?
No.
I read,
or it might fund it, but that's different from saying. So that it basically you could basically strip the FBI of authority, even if you didn't strip it of funding via executive order.
There's a meme that's going around that Trump could sign an executive order disbanding it outright because it's got no congressional authority into its existence, that it was created by executive order or something like that.
Yeah, I think, I'm not
I don't know if that's
sure,
true.
But I'm pretty confident, though, about the ability of the president to just kind of decide to, say, okay, guess what, FBI, like on day one, you're not doing counterintelligence anymore. Right, like done. You don't have any access to it. I'm allocating that authority to other intelligence agencies.
Oh wow, it was linked to prohibition. That's where it started.
Huh, that sounds right.
There's a lot of. I think prohibition is one of the big things. Bank robberies, when bank robberies were a big deal, that was like a big trigger for. I think that was like more like when the FBI really got a lot of its expansion, because one of the problems that it was a huge problem in the Midwest, where you have all these states that are pretty small and like can't think about something like Kansas City, where it's across the border in Kansas and Missouri. So you'd have bank robbers constantly robbing a bank in Kansas and then crossing the border to Missouri and not getting prosecuted.
Right. Roosevelt did start an early form of the FBI after McKinley was assassinated.
It's interesting how it evolved into existence. It wasn't outright created. So when you look at the history of the FBI, it talks about the National Bureau of Criminal Identification, which eventually evolves into the Bureau of Investigation, which eventually evolves into the Federal Bureau of Investigation. It's interesting. Yeah. And there was this is interesting. It says there were fears the new agency would serve as a secret police department. Again, at Roosevelt's urging, Bonaparte moved to organize a formal Bureau of Investigation, which would then have its own staff of special agents.
Yeah, this was Teddy Roosevelt. I think I'm literally just started a book about this because I was interested. Teddy Roosevelt was annoyed with essentially, environmental issues, actually, oddly enough. Like,
progressive.
Yeah.
Conservative.
Pretty progressive.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't like, some big corporate interests screwing up the environment in certain states and, getting away with it.
Gave
with
us
impunity.
national parks.
Yeah.
This is crazy. It was created by the Attorney General. He just one day brought in people and said, report to the chief examiner as investigators. And then they gave a name to the group, the Bureau of Investigation. And then in 1935, they renamed it the Federal Bureau of Investigation. That's it.
Yeah.
In which case, the executive branch could just literally be like, you're gone.
Yeah, or just reroute it. Like, basically, there might be other laws or other statutes that are like funding the FBI or essentially the civil service rules that protect the people there. Okay, that's all fine, but you could just strip it of authority and tell them all to go play bridge. Yeah. Like,
not go kidnap a governor.
Yeah, right. Or yeah, all that you can stop doing that.
My animal brain, my lizard brain, has a hard time with the idea of it erasing the FBI because it's been with me my whole life. So I'm like, wouldn't that cause chaos if we don't have an FBI?
Well, I mean, you need to replace certain of its functions for sure, right? Like you don't want to. I mean, this is not like get rid of having a sort of federal police force. There are things you need a federal police force for when it comes to enforcing federal law. Yes, okay, but I mean, one thing I joked about was you just create a new Federal Justice Bureau. You know, think about what the acronym is.
FJB.
Right.
Agreed.
The
Just
new
for that
federal-
reason, we do it.
Right. A new Federal Justice Bureau
Start a
that
petition.
duplicates the functions of the FBI, but you just make all the current FBI officials like reapply for their jobs. Right. That would be, there's a lot of like clever things you could do given the fact that the institution doesn't have that much statutory protection.
How amazing would it be if Donald Trump gets reelected and then immediately following his inauguration and swearing in, he does an address where he's like, my fellow Americans, you may remember a few years ago when the FBI came into my home. It was terrible, terrible. Everyone says it was one of the most terrible things. I am signing an executive order. There is no more FBI. It'd be hilarious.
I'd be stoked.
Not a good
I'd be
political
stoked.
move.
No, I'd be stoked.
Well, he's
Wow.
got
Bring it, tear it
only
down.
one term. He can't get reelected. He's not going to care. He's like, do something. I don't know. They're
I
gonna-